making sure that my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future and peace. Because you can't put a price on peace.
We have breaking news. It is the moment that many in the Myrtle Beach area of South Carolina have been waiting for. Controversial former pastor John Paul J.P. Miller has been indicted by a federal grand jury. Now, Miller made headlines after his wife Mica, who filed for divorce, ended her own life. But since then, rumors, speculation, they have all been rampant. And now Miller finds himself in some very serious legal jeopardy. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, look, I got to say this real quick, not to detract from what we're saying, but it is the holiday season. You might be looking for a perfect deal on a perfect gift. I got to mention this, the Chef IQ Sense Smart Meat Thermometer. This right here is the secret to stress-free, flawless cooking. So whether you're a seasoned chef or you're just starting out, this smart thermometer, it guarantees perfect results every time. There's no more guessing. There's no more overcooking. You just insert it. You select your food, your cooking method, your preferred doneness, and then you relax. Your app is going to alert you when it's time to flip, remove, rest. It is perfect food every time, from holiday turkey to prime rib to wings, brisket, salmon. It works for the oven, the grill, the smoker, the air fryer. You really can't mess this up. It's the gift that makes cooking stress-free and fun. And with my code SIDEBAR, you can save 30% off site-wide at chefiq.com. Incessant phone calls, leaked nudes, a tracker on a car. These are just some of the allegations that are laid out against John Paul J.P. Miller by federal prosecutors out in South Carolina. A brand new indictment comes nearly 2 years after Miller was thrust into the spotlight in connection with his wife's death. We've talked about this before. Mica Miller took her own life on April 27th, 2024. This was 2 days after serving Miller with divorce papers. Miller himself, a pastor, delivered the news to the congregation at Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach at the end of a sermon, and this shocked everyone.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
Almost immediately after people heard that news, rumors started flying that Miller could have had something to do with Mica dying. Now, to be clear, authorities have said there was no direct evidence saying that he killed her or was responsible for her death, because at first there was speculation that Miller might have been directly involved. There was rumors about staging a homicide to look like something else. But to be clear, a medical examiner confirmed that Mica's death, this tragedy, was a fatal gunshot wound, was self-inflicted. But then something else happened. As word spread that Miller may have been allegedly abusive, there were accusations from Mica's family and the community that Miller had Mica under his thumb, refused to let her go, that she reportedly became more isolated, which, by the way, she seemingly addressed in a Facebook video.
Hey everybody, I just want to let you know that I'm alive and well, and life's been kind of crazy the couple past weeks, months, years, but I've kind of had to keep my circle really small for the past couple weeks, just because I'm going through a lot, and it's hard, and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God has put in my life to deal with, and I don't want to bring a lot of people into it.
And just a couple months before her body was found at a state park, Mica Miller made a call to 911 telling the dispatcher that Miller had assaulted her.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Hi, I have somebody who I believe to be in a manic state and is a direct danger to the people in his household and himself and others. I need an immediate pickup, not the 72-hour pickup that a spouse can initiate. I need this to be a little quicker because he is a flight risk. There's been domestic violence. He put his hands on me, and he's pushed me down in front of thousands of people at Disney World. And so, yeah, and his best friend even saw that happen. Slapped drinks right out of my hand.
Okay.
I was in the hospital after that from just a panic attack of what was happening.
So with it looking more and more like Mica was living in an allegedly abusive relationship, many in the community, they called for authorities to get involved and determine whether Miller had any culpability in Mica's death in some way. Now, meanwhile, according to multiple online reports, Miller seemed to be moving on, and pretty quickly. He was reportedly seen on a date with a woman named Susie Skinner just days after Mica's death. According to Miller's first wife, Miller and Skinner, they were allegedly having an affair in 2021, the same year that Skinner's wheelchair-bound husband drowned. It's a really odd thing that two people who had a relationship are suddenly both single because of the deaths of their spouses. But to be clear, authorities have never said there is any evidence to suggest these deaths are anything than what they seem. I will tell you, Miller and Skinner, they got married this past summer. So now I want to go back to November 1st of last year. You know why? Because that is when the FBI searched Miller's home. They were reportedly seen removing items from his house, but what exactly was taken into evidence or why Miller was under investigation, that wasn't clear. During all of this, Miller was having to contend also with protesters outside of his home and church calling for justice for Mica. And after the FBI raid, tensions boiled over, and Miller was ultimately arrested for getting into an altercation with a woman in a parking lot. Authorities were called out, and according to an incident report, the woman that Miller got apparently into this altercation with told police, quote, while she was on the sidewalk in front of Solid Rock Church, she observed the offender recording them from behind protesters' vehicles in the parking lot. She then went across the street to confront him. She stated she called out to the offender to ask what he was doing. The offender walked away, but she called back out to him, and the offender came back and met her in between two vehicles where words were exchanged, and the victim said the offender began recording her. While the offender was holding the phone up to her face, the victim said the offender asked her, "What you gonna do?" and tapped the bill of her hat 2 times and walked away, after which the victim yelled at the offender, "Don't you touch me," multiple times. So Miller was later arrested. He was charged with 3rd-degree assault and battery. He was released on bond the following day. And as we started digging into Miller, and as we started looking more into his prior legal issues, we learned a lot of information from a request that Mica filed with Surfside Beach Magistrate Court on March 11th. And this is where she was seeking a restraining order. She alleged that Miller was stalking her, doing things like putting a tracker on her car, spamming her phone with calls and text messages. The court proceedings ended up being dismissed and no restraining order was ever actually issued. But in light of what he's now charged with, you gotta wonder, are authorities believing everything she was saying? Because I will tell you, those allegations right now are in black and white in federal court records. A grand jury returned a bill of indictment, the United States of America versus John Paul Miller. To talk more about this, the allegations, I want to welcome back on Regina Ward, an attorney for Mica's family. Thank you so much for taking the time. Before we even go through the indictment here, this is major news for anybody who's been following this story. We know the family has been waiting for some sort of accountability for years. How are they feeling right now, given the fact that he has been indicted?
Yes, it's been like a kind of felt like everyone else. When is the day coming? And so the wheels of justice tend to turn a little slow, but that's okay. I'm happy with methodical justice, and I'm glad we're here.
As the lawyer in me, I do have to say, look, he is innocent until proven guilty. The prosecution will have the burden of proving all of this. But have you learned any more on your end about the FBI investigation, what has been going on behind the scenes? Because this has taken some time since the news first broke that his property was being searched to now the indictment. Do you know anything that's been going on behind the scenes that you can share with us?
Right. I wouldn't have any direct personal knowledge. I did in the beginning, obviously, whenever the subpoena was served upon me for my documents and things that the FBI wanted when they were beginning their investigation. Once that ball got rolling and they were, they had everything that I had, then they executed that search warrant, which I'm sure added a lot to it. As far as what was going on behind the scenes, I can only imagine by virtue of this indictment, they've been doing their job and getting the evidence and everything together to be able to pull this indictment off.
Let's talk about the indictment. I want to go through it because, and as we go through it, so everybody knows, Mica is referred to victim 1 here. So there are 2 counts. Count 1, cyberstalking. Here's what the filing says. The grand jury charges that beginning on or around November 16, 2022, and continuing through on or about April 27, 2024 in the District of South Carolina and elsewhere, The defendant, John Paul Miller, with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate, or place under surveillance with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate victim 1, used interactive computer services to engage in a course of conduct that placed victim 1 in reasonable fear of death or serious bodily injury and attempted to cause, and the course of conduct would be reasonably expected to cause victim 1 substantial emotional distress, to wit, John Paul Miller sent or caused to be sent unwanted and harassing electronic communications to victim 1, used or threatened to use nude photos and photographs of victim 1 to harass victim 1, posted a nude photograph of victim 1 online without victim 1's consent, placed or caused to be placed tracking devices on vehicles used by victim 1, placed victim 1 or caused victim 1 to be placed under surveillance with the intent to harass and intimidate victim 1, damaged victim 1's vehicle, interfered with victim 1's finances and banking, and interfered with victim 1's daily activities. There's a whole lot to unpack there, but Regina, first, I think it's notable that these were allegations we had heard before, but federal prosecutors believe they have the evidence to substantiate this.
Yes, as I stated before with the subpoena, the things that Mica kept and put together in preparation for her hearing in family court, all of those things were turned over, and it had to do with specifically the nude photo that's being referred to. Also, the tracking device and the evidence that we had of that tracking device, the police reports that were made that support the damage to her vehicle and the slashing of her tires. There's supporting evidence for all of that was collected by Mica herself.
And if you talk about the nude photos or the videos of Mica that Miller allegedly put online, we've actually heard about this before. News Nation reported last year that Miller had apparently written a letter to Mica, seemingly apologizing, seemingly admitting to doing just that. Quote, "I'm sorry for putting a picture of you on the internet. It was for less than 1 hour and immediately taken down. I was hurt that you were telling everyone horrible, intimate details of my past sin, and I just wanted to try and hurt you. Please forgive me. It was evil of me to do that." Now, Regina, revenge porn is more common than maybe most people probably realize. It is also a crime. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about this letter, because I think it's significant.
Yes, in fact, that letter was written. He's trying to explain away that letter that she required him to write it, and he made up all of these things because she was saying all these things. But she had independent evidence of these allegations that she kept. Also, in addition to that, her journals and the writings that she put together. So as far as when you speak of like revenge porn, I don't even like to call it that, because really it was intent. The intent of the photo was for a private photo to be shared between a husband and wife, and certainly
Right.
not to be shared. And Mica was very clear in that. She even made a police report about it, complaining that he was threatening to upload it and that sort of thing.
And when you talk about the evidence, because Mica had previously told police that she found a tracking device on her car, she thought that she was being found. They thought she was being surveilled, that Miller was messing with her finances and possessions like her car, and this, sort of alleged escalating behavior. But there had to be something else that investigators found, some sort of evidence, maybe when they conducted search warrants, right? When they seized certain materials, apparently, that would corroborate this. I mean, do you have any idea what sort of evidence might investigators have to back up those claims of the surveillance?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one thing. Whenever they executed that search warrant, I actually was there when the FBI was doing that, and I was watching some of the things that you could see that was coming out. Most of it was in paper bags and boxes and things like that. But there was obviously a computer that was taken out of that house. And so when I saw that, I immediately thought, yes, that's definitely going to have some material on it that would corroborate Mica's the allegations that Mica had been making. And I would assume that is exactly what had happened, especially with the mention of the purchase of the tracker. There would have been evidence of him purchasing that whenever he's the one who said he never, or excuse me, the things that this slashing of the tires, he denied that. And it sounds like they found some evidence to corroborate that allegation.
And I want to highlight this part of count one. It's very crucial, with the intent to kill, injure, harass, intimidate. So prosecutors seem to be alleging that there was intention behind what Miller allegedly did, that he was deliberately trying to hurt her in some way. People might read this, Regina, and say, wait a minute, is this a roundabout way of accusing Miller of causing Mica's death, not directly killing her. Do you think there's anything to that, or are we looking too far into it? Because, you know, there were a lot of thoughts about whether or not he was responsible for her death in any way, and there was no evidence to suggest that he, you know, was directly involved in what happened to her. But there were those who would make the claim, you know, he drove her to what happened, he was responsible. Do you think that this is a roundabout way for prosecutors to make that point, or am I looking at it the wrong way?
Well, no, of course, I can't get into the minds or surmise what a prosecutor is thinking, but I also know that, you know, there are attorneys and they like to win, lawyers like to win their cases. And so basically, whenever they pull this cyberstalking count, there are what we call elements of law that are associated with any type of crime that's being charged against someone. And those words are actually part of it. You know, I know that some people will extrapolate that and say, oh my goodness, this proves he was trying to, you know, to take her life. We have to read beyond that and also know that it also, not only that it was also that he intended to injure her, harass her, intimidate her, the things that we talk about in coercive control abuse. This is exhausting to read the indictment because it's not even everything that she experienced, but it's a lot of it. And just going through that demonstrates how this type of you know, mental abuse can wear a person down and just, you know, really get into their self-confidence and things like that. So I don't think it's a roundabout way. I like that it's directly on point with regard to the type of harassment and abuse that she suffered, you know, allegedly at his hands.
And then you have this other charge, making a false statement to law enforcement. Quote, the grand jury further charges he falsely claimed victim one had been calling him more than he called victim one on March 11, 2024, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, called victim one at least 50 times more than she called him. He falsely claimed police had never told him to stop contacting victim one, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, was told on March 11, 2024 by a police officer to stop contacting victim one. He falsely claimed he did not damage victim one's tires or cause to be damaged, when in fact the defendant, John Paul Miller, used or caused to be used a tire deflation device in victim one's tires. So Regina, give us more context about what that's about, him allegedly lying to law enforcement about his relationship and activities with Mica.
Yeah, well, sure. That's, you know, part of the classic tactics is to, you know, deny, lie, deny, obfuscate type of thing. So the interesting thing here is, as you mentioned earlier, victim one is referring to Mica. Well, with regard to the false statement, the victim there is the United States of America. That's the state who is prosecuting that. That is a victim that's that can offer up corroborating evidence, and so there's some concern by some who have looked at this that because Mica will not be able to testify against Mr. Miller in a court of law, that it's going to be a little bit more difficult on that charge. While I think that they've got a lot of good evidence there, of course, when you have that testimony is probably the most solid. But with regard to the false statements, the victim is the prosecuting authority, is the United States, is the people, and so that's going to be a charge that probably has a pretty good bit of good standing.
Right, and let me say this as well. Digital records, the digital trail, so critical to any investigation. I spoke earlier about Miller's relationship with his former wife, Susie Skinner. There were allegations of infidelity. We all, are wondering, by the way, Skinner has never been investigated or charged in connection with Mica's death. You do wonder if she'll play a role in this in some way. But here's something that's interesting. It's our understanding from the federal court docket that Miller was not taken into, or will not be taken into custody. He was issued a summons. He has to report to the courthouse. The docket indicates that he's set to be arraigned on January 12th. If Miller is found guilty, do you know what sort of punishment he could face? And no matter what the outcome is, the fact that now he has been indicted, does this affect Mica's family, their ability to file a civil claim against Miller?
Okay, so a few things there with regard to the the penalty if he's found guilty. With regard to the cyberstalking, I think it's up to 5 years in prison. Of course, that's the max. As far as the false statement, I apologize, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. And in terms of, will he do time? Well, we certainly hope so, but I'm also a criminal defense attorney, and I know that there are ways to, negotiate cases and things like that, and look for weaknesses and loopholes in cases. So I'm sure that his lawyer will, do his job as a defense attorney. As far as him not being, picked up and he was just received a summons, well, it was not uncommon knowledge to know that he was represented by a criminal defense attorney. And it's not unusual for criminal defense attorneys to say, hey, I know that you may have a warrant for my client. Can we organize where they can voluntarily turn themselves in? So that's was something that his lawyer obviously was working for him. Yeah, so with regard to the civil claim, that was actually handled early on in the case, and there was a confidential settlement regarding that. So that was already addressed very early on in the case.
All right, Regina Ward, this is a very interesting update. We want to continue to follow it, see what happens. We'll see, what happens at that next court date. But really appreciate you taking the time and speaking on behalf of Mica's family, as you always do. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. Appreciate you covering the story. It's been very important to all of the folks who have been supporting Mica and her case and the movement to get change in our law. And so that's helped by you as well. Thank you so much.
It was our pleasure to cover this. And again, I know that people have very strong opinions about this case one way or another. I do have to add always the caveat, we're trying to be fair, present both sides. As I mentioned, he is innocent until proven guilty. We will see more of the evidence that they have against him and what the defenses may be. But it's just, again, a very interesting development in what is a very, very sad case. Regina Ward, thank you.
Thank you.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow me on X or Instagram. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.